Welcome to our podcast, Michelle and Stacey, all things small business.
We hope you enjoy this episode and please visit our website, michelleandstacey.com.au.
That's MICHELLEANDSTACEY.com.au. We would love to hear from you.
Today we are going to be looking at what's the real value of your business,
Yes,
and how to figure it out.
and how to then translate that into a financial dollar. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So give it a whirl. What's the first couple of business values that you should look at?
Well, I think first one would be the customer base or client base, depending what your business is, whether
Yeah.
clients or customers. So I think that's the first key one. I think after that, we'll be looking at the people in your business. So who are the key people in your business that help it be what it is? I think we also need to look at some IP. So
What do you mean by IP?
Yeah, it's a bit of lingo, isn't it? Intellectual property. So intellectual property is a really tricky one. Because it's usually the stuff you can't see. You can't put your finger on. You can't pick it up. They're the things that, for example, if you it might be a formula for a product that you produce. But what's the formula? So you can pick up the product, but what's the formula to actually make that product, for example? Or it could be a recipe for some amazing dish that a restaurant has.
Yeah.
So that's really what we mean by intellectual property.
Yeah. Or it could be things like reputation as well.
Oh, it could be. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So reputation, goodwill, like I guess you talk about goodwill, but goodwill really is the intellectual property in a way. But yeah, reputation. So if you were talking about like either, well, any kind of business really, more like a service business really, talking about reputation could be their IP.
Definitely.
Yeah, or it could be a brand, like if you actually have a product, not just the formula, but the actual, like Nike.
Yes.
The name of the brand, it's the brand, but that's the intellectual property. So what does that brand represent?
Yeah.
And then I guess, what are some others?
Could be, who are your suppliers?
Why would that be important to value?
Because depending on where you source your goods that you're going to use to produce what you're going to produce and sell, that could change the quality of your overall product, depending what it is. So having really good key relationships with those suppliers is...
Yeah, and maybe having long-term contracts and stuff to make sure you've got regularity of supply and things like that. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, it could be that you've got suppliers that might produce, say, in Europe, and it's really high quality, or you could get the same in China, but not so good quality. But, your business has the reputation of doing it, from the European brands. So you want to make sure you've got I guess a locked-in supply of those products for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's really good. What else? Do you have any others?
Well, again, just following on from that, like any kind of agreements that you might have. So again, it might not be just, well, I guess a distributor is a supplier, but it might be a, distribution agreement that you've got, which could be, distributing your product around Australia. So you might not be able to do it yourself. So you've got a distributor who does it on your behalf, and you want to and they might cover like massive areas and stuff. So if you're not sweet with them, you might lose out on that, and then you haven't got the coverage that you might have had.
Definitely,
yeah.
That's really key, because you might have created an amazing product, but you've then lost your ability to sell that. So therefore, now you've got all this product with no market. So you've got lots of supply, but no demand. So it's really important.
Yeah. And then another one would be the lease that you've got. So physical presence of the business. and, you know, whether you own that or lease it or whatever. But if that business is dependent on where it's located, that can be really important as part of the sale.
Location, 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 they say.
Exactly. For some businesses, processing technology could be a massive, like, reason why people want to buy it. Like if someone is really up there with the latest processes and technologies and their business runs like super efficiently, that could be really attractive to a potential buyer. You know, it's not always the case in a lot of businesses. It's not that important, but in some businesses. So what kind of business do you think that would be important in, Stacey?
I think a manufacturing type business, that would be very important.
You want to have the most efficient, because then, you know, efficiency should hopefully translate into better profit.
Absolutely. And so there's a lot of businesses these days, especially manufacturing, that use robots and things like that to really to be more efficient, but also they can have their businesses running manufacturing 24/7 because they need people as well in those businesses, but a lot of it can be done through machines and robots. And the people are then there to monitor that those machines and robots are doing what they're meant to do and make sure that they're being repaired and maintained along the way. So, that's probably one that I would say manufacturing is probably the biggest one that uses technology in the process.
And then I think the last one I can think of would be like if you're in a business that has market share. So, you know, if you've got the luxury where you've got, even if you had small market share, you might be bought out by your competitor who wants to increase their market share. So, you know, that might be a good way for someone to get an extra 10% market share without, you know, having to do all the, you know, trying to get all the customers to move across and stuff. So that could be really important. And you might get, you know, a much better value for your business if someone's looking at increasing their market share.
Absolutely. And you might think that your market share is quite small in the scheme of your industry that you're operating in, but smaller businesses are often able to pivot quickly and to be more creative because they've got usually smaller teams behind them, and it's really a lot easier to be more creative and to do more things with a smaller team quickly. Whereas when you've got larger teams, there's a lot more red tape usually that's happening behind the scenes in order to get anything done.
Yeah, that's right.
So what you can find is you may be a small business who has done something really quickly or being really creative in a short space of time, and your larger competitors have noticed this and you're now a threat to them. So what they may do is they may approach you to buy your business, to buy that intellectual property that we were talking about before, in order to get more market share quickly. Because with what you've developed, your new process, your new technology, your new formula, whatever it is, if they're able to grab that from you quickly by buying you out, then their market share will increase quite quickly and a lot quicker than it otherwise would have for them
to go out and get it.
To go out and get it.
And it might be a lot cheaper for them to do it like that too.
Absolutely. And they've also taken a competitor out of the market in the process. Exactly. So it could be quite strategic.
And it could be more efficient for them as well, because obviously they can bring in your stuff and they, you know, don't need the same infrastructure as you would having one business. So it would be much more efficient for them potentially as well.
Absolutely. So I guess don't underestimate market share as being one of these key business values.
So I think I can't really think of any more at this stage in terms of the two.
But I think we've done a good list there.
Yeah. So the next step I would look at then is, well, how important is each of these values? And then how do you translate, this is the hard part, this is the real tricky part, how do you translate these into a financial dollar?
Yes. And I think this is where, you know, we're talking about the art of understanding because there's science behind this, but a lot of it comes down to art, because when you're valuing things, there's a one value.
No.
It's a very subjective and what's the word I'm looking for? Very dynamic kind of situation, depending on the timing of when it's done and depending on what lens or angle you're looking at it. So it's a bit of fun in a lot of ways because, you know, how good are you at debating and arguing your case, basically.
But not only that, I mean, you've got to have a little bit of science about it. It's not just all art, because you've got to be realistic. You can't just make it up and then try and make it fit. You've got to have, like, you know, the art is making it fit, but the science is making sure it actually makes, you know, common sense.
Correct.
To people.
Correct. You've got to have enough evidence to back up what you're trying to argue, and the art side is how you present it.
Yeah. So we thought to kind of help to explain this, because it's not so easy to explain, we recently went out with a group of our mates, or unfortunately accountant girls, for dinner. But we went to this fabulous Indian restaurant that it was really, really good.
So good. So good. We'll be back.
Yeah, yeah. In a nice seaside suburb, in a good spot, you know, a wealthy kind of suburb that we went to. So we thought that we would critique this Indian restaurant because we were very impressed, and for a number of reasons that we'll go into. And we're going to rate this restaurant, what we thought this restaurant was worth out of 10 for each of these different values that we've just explained. And then we're going to pick the top 3 of those and then try and work out how we would value this business. Okay. So we're just going to go through one by one. So I'll start and I'll ask you, Stacey, what would you rate it? So the first one was the customer base. What would you rate that?
I would say 9 out of 10.
Yeah. And why would you say that?
That
it was chockers.
The rest. I think it was a Tuesday or Wednesday night.
Yeah.
It was midweek.
Yeah.
It was not. It was the weather wasn't that.
I think it had been a Monday or Tuesday. It was. It was really early in the week.
It was early in the week.
It was buzzing.
It was buzzing. The weather wasn't that great outside, so it would have been an easy night to say, "No, I can't bother going out tonight. We're staying home." And yeah, it was in a shopping strip that there, you know, at that time of night there on that night.
There's a lot of choice though too as well.
Yeah, there was a lot of other restaurants. You know, parking. I remember doing a couple of laps to get parking.
Yeah.
So, you know, if it would be very easy to go, can't be bothered. This is not going to work out tonight.
But
I'm going home. But it was chockers.
Yeah. And I've been there before. I was the one who recommended it, and same deal. Like I'd been, you know, previously, and same deal. There was chockers.
Yeah. And it was a good buzz. It was like a Friday night buzz, but it was a Monday or Tuesday night.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then the next one is the key people in the business. So in this particular one, it was interesting, and I think this is why we really like this business and why we're picking it, is because it was the 2 owners, which were husband and wife, were front of house, and they were really good selling people.
Really good, really good. They really cared about their customer. And
you could tell that a lot of the customers were customers like locals.
Yes.
Not just, you know, transient customers.
And I remember,
like us.
and he had, like, they'd have conversations with you. And so we actually, you know, Michelle and I like to talk, as you've probably figured out already. We like to learn about businesses, and we like to solve problems. So we had a great chat with them, and separately. And I remember the husband in particular was saying that the table next to us, they had it was a group of boys there, and these boys would have been like late teens, early 20s, and he was saying that he remembers these boys coming in with their parents when they were kids to this restaurant. And these boys have since brought their girlfriends to this restaurant. So that just says a lot about
Oh, yeah. I think he was saying they had been in business about 29 years or 30 years or something.
Something like that, yeah. And they'd won a lot of awards and things too. And I wouldn't be questioning any of those awards given what I saw and experienced that night.
Yeah. No, it was really, really good. It was really good. And I guess the other key person in this type of business would be the chef as well.
Yes.
Yeah, because the food was good. It was reasonable value, it was good food and great service and a good buzz. So everything you really want in a restaurant going out. The only criticism we'd had, it had such a buzz. It was kind of, we were on a reasonably big table and we couldn't really hear everyone. So that was probably the only downside.
That was probably the only downside. And, your typical comment in that situation would be, oh, we'll go back again on a quiet night. Well, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I don't think they have a quiet night. So,
yeah. So, but I think the chef would be important in this one. So, again, what would you rate these people?
Oh, I'd say 9 out of 10.
Yeah. So high as well.
They're very high.
Well.
Yes.
Yeah. And then for this one, I mean, they had a brand, I guess, which was their name. But in this case, I'm going to say what the intellectual property was really more the reputation. Yeah. Being the brand, because obviously if they've been around for, nearly 30 years and the kids and everyone is coming from the original people, it's obviously got a good reputation and it's carried through the whole way through.
Absolutely. And the awards just go to show that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so what would you call that one as well?
Rating. 9 out of 10 for their.
Well, should I say it's 9 out of 10 for everything. She's easy catch, this one. No.
No, I don't give them away easily. But but no, they really.
They were good.
Yeah.
So the next one being suppliers. What would you say in this case?
Rate them sort of midway. Probably around a 6, I'd say. For
because it's probably not that important because there'd be lots of, they could, I'm sure they've got key relationships, but even if they didn't, they could still go and find other suppliers being, an Indian restaurant. There's so many suppliers in Melbourne.
Which I'm just imagining would be their meat, their chicken, their spices, their sauces, all. I think they have plenty of options to gather those if those suppliers that they currently use and have fell through.
Yeah. And what about agreements or key business relationships? How would you rate those?
I'd probably sort of split those out, and I'd say agreements, I'd rate them maybe 3 or 4 because I'm not sure
how important it is.
How important any of those agreements that they may have would be to their business. In terms of key relationships, though, I'd probably rate that maybe a 6.
Why would you say that's a 6?
I think mainly because I'll be looking at this as 2 parts. So one would be they might have some key relationships with some corporates and things, maybe that are local, that they'd come there for lunches or dinners, something like that. But another reason could be with distributors, and I'm not really sure in this restaurant in particular whether they do takeaway with any
like Uber Eats or something like that.
Yes.
I'll help you.
Yes, with any big players. So
I'm sure they probably did. I can't remember seeing it, but I'm sure they would have had Uber Eats and stuff.
I'm sure they would. I'm sure they would have, because it would be popular for that. But I guess that's probably also another tick for them too, given that we sat there, we ate there, we were there for a few hours, we had a great time, and I don't remember seeing any Uber Eats guys walking in and out. So
but you would think that would be a no-brainer.
Definitely. I'd definitely be ordering takeaway from there because it was so good. Yes.
And what about the next one being the lease or the physical location?
Oh, that's high. That would be high. I'd say about a 9 for that. The reason I'd say that's high is because it's a restaurant, and we link back to that very first one we were talking about, which is about the customer base. If most of those customers are locals, which, given how much it was buzzing on a Monday or Tuesday night when we were there, I would say they probably are. And as a result of that, location would be very important. So if someone was to buy this business and set it up somewhere else, I couldn't be sure it would be as successful.
No,
I would hope it would be, but
it was in a prime kind of spot. So, that would be important. Yeah. And then what about market share?
Market share, I'd probably rate that a 6.
Why?
Why? Because I feel that they probably already have a really decent part of the market. And, as we said, there were other restaurants around.
And other Indian restaurants too.
Yeah. But because, they were a really buzzing sort of situation. They had really good key.
And it's just one little restaurant. It's like market share, I think, is important when you're maybe selling a product and you've got big, but like, how do you rate market share? You'll make a market share in that area or market share within Melbourne. They'd be minuscule. So, yeah, I think you're right. I wouldn't rate that particularly high.
Yeah, and like they're not a chain or anything like that. They're not a franchise. They're just, So there's, So I would say,
The last one we spoke about was the process and technology.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, right? Because I'd probably rate this one at a 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why?
Why? Yeah, it's really interesting because I think they've got really good processes because, we felt like we were kings and queens there. Experiencing the dinner we had, right?
But they didn't have handhelds. No. They didn't even write it down. He just came and took your order and it was in his head. So
I was blown away by that, by the way. Given we had a complicated order.
We did. There was how many?
And there was 5 or 6 of us, something like that.
Yeah.
And we had a complicated order. We all ordered something different. We were all asking
and
drinks different. And he repeated it back to us. And when the meals came out, he knew whose was whose and I was blown away by it. But I think that's just experience, and that's probably his little what am I trying to say? His talent, his I think that's probably his forte, his thing.
Yeah. So, but I think in terms of when we translate this back to business value, obviously that was really good and interesting, but in terms of what's the value for him selling the business? Well, it's in the guy's head. It's not going to help. So once he's gone, it's gone.
Correct. So
it's not going to be high in the value chain in this instance.
Yeah. And we're talking also about technology, and I didn't really see a lot of technology there too.
No, a lot of places, they have the ordering system and stuff, but they didn't obviously need it. And they obviously had good processes and stuff because it was full, and the way they were, we weren't waiting there for hours and hours, so it was pretty good. And he did say to us in the beginning, I think it was a way him selling, is saying, well, we are full tonight, so I suggest you get an entree. But I think that was just his selling technique as opposed to really needing to get an entree.
Correct. I totally agree with that. And especially then when we did get an entree.
We were full.
We were full. We didn't even need our main, really. But
we did. It was delicious. I did, yeah.
It was delicious.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
It was good. Okay, so let's go through and pick the top 3 of what we've just talked about there. So I think we had 4 9s, and I'm going to group 2 of them together. So I'm going to call my top 3 in terms of the business value for this restaurant, the customer base and the reputation, so the IP and the customer base being one and the same, the key people in the business, and the third one is going to be the lease and the physical presence. Stacey gave them all a 9, I would have too. So they're very high value in this business, right? So how do we translate this value into financial value, right? Now, we'd have to say at the beginning here, there's no one way of doing this. We're just doing this to give you an example of how, if you came to us, how we may approach it in terms of working out, because it's not so easy to do.
It's not. And I think this is, the balance once again between the art and the science, because there are different ways of valuing things, and it also depends on what your business is. So is your business a service business, or is your business a product business, or is it a combination of both? Do you have clients or do you have customers? Do you have repeating customers? Because some businesses do and some businesses don't.
Yeah.
So there's a whole range of factors to take into account.
Yeah.
So this is just an example to get you thinking.
Yeah. So let's say this business, and we have no idea, right? We didn't ask the guy, we don't know this, but let's say this business turns over $1 million a year, okay? So the first one being the customer base and the reputation, we're going to say, okay, out of that, we're going to split it down into regular customers and what we're going to call transient customers, like us, that we went and we don't live around there. We only just went because I'd been there before, but it's not like I go all the time. I hadn't been for like over a year. So, but they obviously had a lot of regular customers, right? So we're going to assume that this guy is pretty switched on and he knows what out of the $1 million, what are his regular customers and what we're calling the transient customers. So let's say for argument's sake that the regular customers was 600,000 of that turnover, and the transient customers being people who might come once a year or just in passing and never come again, there might be tourists and things, is 400,000. Okay. So then we're going to say, okay, well, how are we going to value that, right? Because we're talking about this customer base / reputation. And you might say, okay, well, because it is such a good business and it's always so full, we're going to put a very high value on the regular customers. So we're going to look at it in terms of the turnover and value it from a turnover perspective. So we're going to use a multiple of 2, yeah,
okay,
for the regular customers.
The regulars, sure.
And then let's just say, because the transient customers, yes, they're going to help with the reputation, but they're not there all the time. So we're going to give them a lot lower score. We're only going to give them 0.7, right?
Sure.
So out of the 600,000 being regular customers times 2, that values that at 1.2.
Yes.
And if we say the transient customers 400,000, we're only going to value that at 0.7. That's 280,000. So in total, we're going to say the value of this restaurant is 1.48 million, and we're basing that on turnover. So we're going to say this business is for sale. You've come along. How have you valued it? We've valued it like this. We reckon it's worth nearly 1.5 million. That's our value to sell, right? So we've done that.
Yeah.
So that's number one, because that's the, in terms of the customer base and the reputation, we've put that in being, we've called that very, very high. And then we've translated that into a dollar figure, yeah? And then for the second part on the lease and we're now going to go to the lease and the physical premises. We'll come back to the key people after. So, Stace, how would you then translate that to, say it's a leased premise and it's not, they don't own it and it's someone else owns it and it's on lease? It will depend on the term of the lease, because you would then discount that value depending on how long the business has the lease for. So let's just say that the lease was only 1 year and there's no renewal option on the lease. How much would you value that at? So for example, you've got this great restaurant, it's turning over great, but there's no lease in place. There's no guarantee that you're going to get the same spot, and it's obviously pretty important to have it in this spot. So how much would you value that at?
Fairly low.
Yeah.
Probably something like 30%.
30%?
Something
Yeah.
like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? What are your thoughts?
Oh, yeah, probably much the same. The same. I mean, look, it's going to be low, right?
Yeah.
Because you would probably be looking at it and say you'd be lucky to get, maybe, 1 year. You're not going to repay it all in 1 year, so I'd have it fairly low.
Yeah.
So what's the profit out of the 1.4? How much am I really going to get out of it? You might not even value it at 30. But let's say, for argument's sake, we value at 30%.
Yes.
So 30% of the 1.48 million is $444,000. So just showing you now that even though we've got a great business, if you haven't got that lease in place, it's going to be devalued significantly and bring your value down. Yeah. Let's say, on the other hand, they've got a 10-year lease, or they've got a 5 and a 5, so they've got all the renewal options for at least another 10 years. How much would you value that at?
I'd probably give that a 100%.
Yeah.
100% type valuation, because 10 years is plenty of time
to recoup your costs that you've purchased. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, that really does show that how important
the physical location and the lease, being in place. Yeah. yeah.
Definitely.
So that means we're going to go back to our thing, which our original valuation 1.48. So if you only had 1 year, it would be 444,000 versus 10 years lease would be 1,480. That's nearly that's like $1 million difference in the value. Yeah. So it's blooming important. Yeah.
Very. Very.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like that, I guess that's helping us. We come now to the third most important value of this business, and we're calling it the key people, right? So this is a little bit more difficult to value, and you're probably not going to change the valuation, or you may, but it's very difficult. So I would be looking at things like, well, say we've got the chef and we've got the owners being the key people in this business. Let's just go to the chef first. If I was the business owner selling, what would you do, or what, say you're the business owner selling, Stacey, what would you do to keep that chef?
I would be
part of the sale.
As part of the sale. So I'd probably, when we're getting to the pointy end of the sale, make sure that they're aware that you're looking to sell the business, so that it's a real sale that's happening. Include them in the sale, so make sure that they're aware.
Well, you'd have to talk to them and make sure they're happy. And how would you, like, if that was me, I would then offer these people a bonus to stay. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, that's exactly where I was going. Is that I think you need to include them in part of that discussion.
Yeah,
and then
and make sure they want to go.
Make sure they want to go, and then give them an offer.
Yeah,
give them an offer that to show that they are important.
Yeah,
and pay them, because without them, if you're saying we've gone through this process and we've said that this is one of the top 3 items of value, if we don't secure that person as part of the deal for the sale, then the valuation that we come up with for this business will be reduced.
Yeah.
Right. So it's better for us to put some bonuses there on the table and to secure them into it, rather than not, because even if I've got to pay out an expense for in bonuses to this
chef, and it probably
chef,
wouldn't cost you that much. It might be 20, 30 grand out of the big scheme of things.
In the scheme of things, right?
And so it's going to come off your bottom line, but it's going to help the sale go through. If you didn't have that person, it could devalue the business by, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, 40%. Depending on how
exactly,
important
it could be
person
quite
is.
Significant.
Yeah.
So share some of that.
Exactly. Don't be greedy. Yeah. And then what about the owners of the business? Obviously, they're selling, so they're not going to hang around forever. But what way? And we talked about these particular ones where they're great salespeople, and they obviously, it was their business, right? So this is a difficult one because, once the business translates, they're not going to be there to really help it. So what are ways that you could, if you were the owner, suggest to the purchaser how you're going to ease that transition and help them maintain the value of the business?
So there's a few things there. So one is, I think, a normal situation, if the owners weren't a key player in the business, so they were sort of more the management style, they might only stay on for a month.
Yeah,
for example.
Yeah.
So you could extend that period of time because these people are key players and they're front of house, is what we were explaining before.
Yeah.
So in this situation, you might extend that period of time. And what extend it for how long? That could be up for negotiation, but it could be 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, whatever it is.
And part of that would be that you would say, well, I'm going to help you, get to know all our regular customers and introduce you so that they're really comfortable, and tell them that we're going to move out and transition out. So when it happens, it's seamless.
Exactly.
And they've got to know the new people and they're happy to stay and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
exactly. And also, you can also be talking to the customers about the chef's not changing. The chef's actually staying. The food is all going to be the same. And these are the new owners, and, they're learning from us, how we interact and how we take the orders and what our process is. It doesn't mean that they will continue on the exact same process.
No.
But at least the new owners will have an awareness of what the process was and what worked.
Yeah.
And then they add their own little flavour to that, right? Because as owners, you want to put your own flavour and your own personality into what's now your business, but you don't want to lose the key ingredients.
Yeah, which is
pardon
really,
the pun.
Yeah.
For how the business has been successful and has been run previously.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, I hope that's helped people to understand, like we're giving a real life example there. But I mean, obviously, we've used revenue as the way we've valued it, but that's not the only way. There's lots of other ways you could do it. You know, one being profit or the EBITDA, the same kind of thing. Or you could have the IP value of a brand and different things. So, you know, it's not the actual just business turnover. That person might just want the brand. So they don't care what the business is doing, but they're going to value the brand. And there's certain ways you can do that. It really depends on the type of business that you're selling, on how you value it. So we've just given you one example, but it's really just to make you think, one, about the key value of your business. And then number two is, how are you going to translate that into dollars? Yeah, because that's going to determine how much you're going to get for it.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to us again, the girls that like to have a bit of a chat. Our next episode is
who is the purchaser and how are you going to deal with them?
Yeah, because it's pretty important, right? So we're assuming here that you've been approached, right? So we're going to talk about the different types of purchases. Could be like an internal one, could be external. You might know them, you might not. So we're going to go a bit of a deep dive in the purchase and what you really need to think about once you've got a potential purchaser for your business. So thanks very much for listening, everyone, and we will speak to you next time. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to today's episode. We hope you found it informative and useful. We would like to clarify that this podcast is for educational purposes only. The conversations are of a general nature and do not qualify or constitute as financial or tax advice. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and do not reflect any official stance. We make no guarantees about the accuracy, reliability, or completeness of the information presented and are not liable for any losses or damages arising from its use. We recommend you seek the advice of your own legal, financial, or other licensed professional before making any decisions based on the information provided in this podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and tune in again soon to listen to further episodes.